hospital breathed softly under the hum of fluorescent lights. Night had settled into the corridors, stretching shadows along the tile floors. Most of the staff had grown accustomed to the rhythmed beeps of monitors, the low chatter from the nurse's station, the occasional call for a bed in the ER tonight. Everything felt ordinary. She moved through the ward with the quiet efficiency of someone who had done this 1,000 times. The night shift nurse, as everyone assumed her to be, wheeled a crash cart past the reception area. Her posture was straight, hands steady, eyes sharp but calm. She stopped briefly at room 4, checking the vitals of an elderly man recovering from surgery. A simple smile, a gentle touch on the shoulder she left without a word. The doctors barely noticed her. She was one of many faces, quiet, competent, but unremarkable. Some of the younger nurses whispered about her odd precision, how she never seemed flustered, how her hands moved with a confidence most only dreamed of. But no one questioned it. She was simply the night shift nurse. A monitor beeped sharply in the corner of the ward, drawing her attention. She adjusted the oxygen flow for a patient without breaking stride, her eyes scanning the corridor ahead. A tray tipped in the supply room. She righted it with a careful hand, noticing the small details others overlooked. No one commented. No one noticed. In room 7, a child shifted restlessly, clutching a blanket to his chest. She knelt, adjusting the 4-line and whispering a soft reassurance. The boy calmed instantly, though his parents barely registered the gesture. To anyone else, it was routine care. But to her, it was about control, observation, and readiness. The ward phone rang. A doctor barked orders at a young intern across the hall. Papers rustled, the coffee machine hissed, and somewhere, a pager buzzed. She paused for a heartbeat, listening, scanning. Every sound was a data point, every movement a potential risk. It was instinct more than thought, yet it flowed silently, seamlessly. Outside, a storm began to gather. Rain tapped against the hospital windows, a rhythm that matched the quiet pulse of the night. The staff did not notice, preoccupied with charts and coffee cups, laughter from the cafeteria echoing faintly down the hall. She did. Her eyes flicked to the locked doors and the empty elevator shaft. Small gaps, unnoticed threats, patterns forming. Nothing had yet broken the rhythm. No one had screamed, no alarms had blared. Yet in the stillness, she moved like someone prepared for the worst. Every action precise, every glance intentional. She carried herself with a calm authority no one had yet seen, and it went unremarked, as if the night itself respected her silence. A cart rolled past the nurse's station, clattering softly. She caught it, steadied it, and walked on. The corridors were quiet, too quiet, and in that quiet, she waited, ready for whatever would come, though nobody, not the doctors, not the staff, not the patients, had any reason yet to look at her twice. The night had only begun, and already she was aware that the ordinary was a fragile illusion. The rain outside had intensified, drumming against the windows in a steady, insistent rhythm. The hospital's fluorescent lights reflected off the wet floors, creating long, wavering shadows. Everything appeared normal, but she felt it a subtle shift in the air. The quiet tension beneath the surface of routine. A visitor arrived at the ER entrance, dripping wet and carrying an oversized bag. The receptionist greeted him with the usual politeness, but something about his posture and the way he scanned the waiting area made her pause. He didn't speak, just lingered, eyes darting. The staff barely noticed. They were busy with vitals, charts, and the minor emergencies that always punctuated the night. She did. She walked past the nurse's station, checking on patients as she went. Her hands adjusted an oxygen mask here, a monitor there, all with the ease of practiced muscle memory. Yet her attention was split. She observed the visitor from the corner of her eye. He moved with caution, deliberate, aware. That awareness triggered a spark of concern. The night continued its quiet rhythm, punctuated by small alarms and whispered requests. But the visitor lingered longer than anyone expected, moving toward the elevator with measured steps. One of the interns noticed and raised a question, half in jest. The receptionist waved it off. She didn't. Her eyes scanned the hallways, exits, patient rooms, supply closets, staff movement. Each detail registered small, easily overlooked, but significant in her mind. She noted the visitor's back again, heavy and uneven, the subtle tension in his shoulders. It was nothing alarming to anyone else, but she filed it away, as though anticipating what could come next. A pager buzzed sharply from the nurse's station. She lifted it, checked the message, and let it go. The alert was routine, a minor code. A patient needing monitoring, but her mind remained partially on the visitor. She adjusted a monitor for a patient in room 12, then paused at the hallway corner. The visitor had stopped near the elevator doors, glancing toward the stairwell, listening. The interns whispered among themselves about the quiet night, the odd visitor, the eerie calm. She didn't comment. She simply observed. Each movement, each sound, each glance added to the data she collected silently. She repositioned a chair in room 8, then checked the fire exits, noting which were locked, which could be accessed quickly. A low hum vibrated through the hospital as the storm outside pressed harder. The visitor disappeared from the hallways. For a moment, then re-emerged, moving toward the patient wards. The staff remained oblivious, distracted by paperwork and routine care. She didn't move immediately, instead assessing, planning. Her heart rate remained calm, steady, but her awareness sharpened. She wasn't acting yet. The first warning signs were subtle: the visitor's pacing, the slight tension in the air, the quiet unease of the night. She made small adjustments, quietly moving patients closer to safe areas, ensuring doors were secured without raising suspicion. Nobody noticed her meticulous preparation. To everyone else, she was the night shift nurse, moving silently through routine tasks. But beneath that calm exterior, she was already anticipating the storm, preparing for what she knew could arrive at any moment. The hospital's ordinary night was fracturing, and she sensed the tension tightening like a drawn wire. By the time the visitor approached the UR, she had already accounted for the layout, the staff positions, the patient's vulnerability. She didn't speak, she didn't act. She simply waited, watching, ready. The calm before chaos had a distinct shape, and she knew it intimately. The ER doors burst open with a violent clang, the sound slicing through the quiet night like a gunshot. A man stormed in, his coat soaked, hands shaking as he brandished a pistol. He barked orders, his voice jagged with anger and desperation. Nurses froze mid-step, interns stumbled backward, and patients shrieked in terror. For a moment, it was pure chaos, screams echoing against sterile walls, beds rattling. As Steph tried to usher patients into corners, and the emergency lights flickering as if signaling the shift from routine to crisis, the intruder's eyes scanned the room, taking control of the ward with sheer presence. She remained in the background, her calm a stark contrast to the panic around her. Hands steady, she assessed the situation in fractions of a second. And exits, positions of patients, staff readiness, and the intruder's posture. Every small detail mattered, and she noted each one silently. Carefully, the intruder barked at a nurse to move a patient, waving his gun like a conductor's baton. Others obeyed reluctantly, trembling. But she stayed still, pretending to adjust an IV line while tracking his movements. He didn't know she was paying attention, yet every shift of his weight, every subtle glance, was catalogued in her mind. A young intern dropped a chart, the papers scattering across the floor. The intruder snapped at him, raising the gun. The staff froze, unable to act. She stepped forward, not recklessly, not visibly, but just enough to gently nudge the intern behind a gurney, shielding him with her body. The intruder's attention flicked momentarily toward her, suspicion flashing in his eyes, but she stayed composed, calm, almost fragile. Her mind worked rapidly. She calculated the intruder's range, the angles of fire, and the positions of each patient. There was no panic, no bravado, just observation, strategy, and patience. She moved a patient chair a few feet to create a subtle barrier. She adjusted a wheelchair to block a direct line of sight to the bed where a child lay shaking. The intruder didn't notice, but the risks to the patients decreased slightly with each quiet action she took. He turned abruptly toward the nurse's station, shouting orders, demanding access codes. The receptionist fumbled with her phone. A monitor beeped in alarm. Staff whispered frantically to each other, unsure of what to do. She leaned in just enough to tap the machine, turning off an alarm that would have drawn his attention. Another small, unseen adjustment. Asterisk, asterisk.